The polite warning. The Galactic Coalition chamber hummed with the conversations of 100 different species, each communicating in their own unique way. Luminescent beings flashed colors, crystalline entities vibrated frequencies, and the gas-based nebulons swirled in complex patterns. Yet among all these extraordinary forms of life, it was the newest members who attracted the most attention, not for their appearance, but for their persistent and peculiar behavior. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the assembly, her small human frame dwarfed by the massive amphitheater. The Craxian delegation, towering beings of armored carapace and razor-sharp appendages, clicked their mandibles in barely concealed contempt. Esteemed members of the coalition, Sarah began, her voice calm but carrying an undertone that few species could detect. Earth respectfully requests that the Craxian Empire reconsider their expansion into the Epsilon sector. We have established colonies there, and any military action would be unwise. High Commander Zorak, leader of the Craxian delegation, let out a sound that translated as laughter. The Epsilon sector falls within our traditional sphere of influence. Your colonies are unauthorized settlements on worlds we have long claimed. Remove them, or we will remove them for you. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her colleagues noticed the slight tension in her shoulders. Commander, I must emphasize, please don't make us mad. This is not a threat, but a sincere warning for your own well-being. The chamber erupted in various forms of amusement. The Craxians were known throughout the galaxy as apex predators, their empire built on the subjugation of dozens of worlds. Humanity, barely a century into space travel, was seen as an amusing addition to the coalition. Clever perhaps, but ultimately insignificant. Your warnings are noted and dismissed, Zorak declared. The Craxian Empire does not yield to the whims of primitive species. The session concluded with the Coalition Council voting to remain neutral in the dispute. It was a decision they would come to regret. In the weeks that followed, diplomatic channels buzzed with activity. Human representatives met privately with coalition members, sharing historical data that raised eyebrows, or their equivalent, across species. The record spoke of the Yathi Confederation, once a minor power that had attempted to invade Earth in 2157. They vanished without a trace. The Morthan raiders, who had tried to establish a slave trade in human colonies, disappeared in 2203. The pattern was consistent. Those who threatened humanity ceased to exist as galactic powers. Most dismissed these accounts as exaggeration or coincidence. The Craxians certainly did. Admiral Thor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Decimator, as his fleet of 200 warships approached the human colonies in the Epsilon sector. His tactical displays showed minimal defenses, a handful of patrol vessels, and some orbital platforms. It would be a swift victory. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the human forces. Display it, Thor commanded. A human male appeared on the screen, wearing a simple uniform devoid of military decorations. Craxian Fleet, this is Colonel Marcus Webb of Earth Defense Command. You are entering restricted space. We ask you once more, please reconsider your actions. Don't make us mad. Thor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Colonel Webb, you have 1 hour to evacuate your colonies. Refuse, and we will demonstrate why the Craxian Empire is feared across the galaxy. The human's expression remained remarkably calm. Admiral, I'm going to share something with you that we don't advertise. Earth is what we call a death world. Everything on our planet evolved to kill everything else. We survived by becoming the most adaptable, the most ruthless when necessary. We learned to harness forces that other species consider theoretical. Please, for your own sake, turn back. Empty words from a species barely out of its stellar cradle. Thor scoffed. Your hour begins now. As the connection closed, Thor's second-in-command approached. Admiral, our intelligence suggests the humans might possess unknown defensive capabilities. Irrelevant. Thor dismissed. Begin the attack sequence. The Craxian fleet advanced, weapons charging, shields at maximum. They expected resistance, perhaps even a brave but futile defense. What they didn't expect was for reality itself to bend. Across the human colonies, hidden installations activated. These weren't conventional weapons or shields, but something far more fundamental. Quantum field generators, developed in secret over decades, began manipulating the very fabric of space-time. On the bridge of the decimator, alarms suddenly blared. "Admiral, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies forming around our ships." Thor watched in disbelief as space itself seemed to ripple and fold. Some of his ships began to stretch impossibly long, while others compressed into points of infinite density. Time dilation fields created pockets where his crews experienced years in seconds or became frozen in temporal stasis. "What is this sorcery?" Thor demanded, his confidence evaporating. "It's not sorcery," came Colonel Webb's voice over the comm. "It's quantum mechanics taken to its logical conclusion. Every human child learns about Schrödinger's cat. Admiral, we just scaled it up." The Craxian fleet, pride of an empire that had conquered worlds for millennia, found itself helpless against an enemy that didn't fight with conventional weapons, but with the fundamental forces of the universe. "Please," Webb's voice continued, "stand down. We don't want to do this." Thor, watching another squadron of his ships phase out of normal space-time, finally understood. The humans hadn't been making empty threats or bluffing from weakness. They had been genuinely trying to avoid using weapons so terrible that they preferred diplomacy at any cost. As his own ship began to experience temporal distortions, Thor realized that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, it was their restraint. The quantum revelation. The decimator shuddered as reality warped around it. "Admiral," Thor gripped his command chair, his warrior's pride warring with growing terror as he watched his invincible fleet succumb to forces beyond comprehension. "Admiral," his science officer called out, voice distorted by temporal fluctuations. "The humans aren't using conventional weapons. They're manipulating quantum fields on a scale that should be impossible." Through the view screen, Thor witnessed the impossible. A battlecruiser, caught in a probability storm, existed in multiple states simultaneously, intact, destroyed, and every possibility in between. Another ship aged 10,000 years in seconds, its hull crumbling to cosmic dust. "How?" Thor demanded. "Our intelligence indicated they barely understood fusion power." Colonel Webb's face reappeared on the screen, his expression somber. "Admiral, we learned long ago that advertising our true capabilities invited conflict. It's easier to appear harmless and ask nicely. You deceived the entire galaxy," Thor accused. "No," Webb replied. "We simply didn't correct your assumptions. Let me tell you about Earth, Admiral. Our planet has a higher gravity than most inhabited worlds. Our weather systems are violent and unpredictable. We evolved alongside predators that could crush steel, parasites that could rewrite our DNA, and diseases that could wipe out millions. Every day was a battle for survival." The bridge of the decimator flickered as temporal waves washed over it. Thor saw his crew aging and de-aging randomly, some trapped in temporal loops, repeating the same actions endlessly. "When we discovered quantum mechanics," Webb continued, "we didn't just theorize about it. We weaponized it. While other species were content with fusion reactors and antimatter drives, we delved into the fundamental nature of reality itself. We learned to manipulate probability, to bend spacetime, to create and destroy matter at will." "Why?" Thor gasped as his own perception of time began to fragment. "Why develop such terrible weapons?" "Because we're paranoid," Webb admitted. "Our history is filled with extinction events, genocides, and world wars. When we reached the stars and found a galaxy full of powerful empires, we knew we needed an edge. But we also knew that power corrupts. So we hid our capabilities and relied on diplomacy." On the tactical display, Thor watched as quantum singularities formed around his dreadnoughts, pulling them into dimensions that shouldn't exist. Energy beings from parallel realities, accidentally summoned by the quantum disruptions, fed on his ship's power cores. Your empire is conquered through fear, Webb said. We chose a different path. We ask nicely, we negotiate, we compromise. Not because we're weak, but because we know what we're capable of. Every time we say, please don't make us mad, we're not threatening. We're pleading. We're begging you not to force us to become the monsters we know we can be. Cthor's fleet, once 200 strong, was down to a handful of ships. Those that remained were trapped in quantum probability fields, neither fully in this universe nor fully out of it. We can end this now, Webb offered. Withdraw, and we'll stabilize your remaining ships. Continue, and, well, there are worse fates than death. Admiral, there are states of existence that defy comprehension. The science officer turned to Cthor, his form flickering between states of matter. Admiral, their quantum manipulation extends beyond weapons. They could rewrite our genetic code, alter our memories, even change the fundamental constants of our local spacetime. We're not fighting a war. We're facing beings who can reshape reality itself. Cthor's mandibles clicked in what his species recognized as surrender. What do you want? We want peace, Webb said simply. We want to explore the galaxy, make friends, trade ideas. We don't want to rule or conquer. We just want to be left alone to pursue our dreams. And if others threaten you, Webb's expression hardened slightly. Then we'll ask them nicely to reconsider. And if they don't, well, the universe is vast, Admiral. There's plenty of room for everyone, and no need for anyone to discover what happens when humanity stops saying please. As Cthor gave the order to retreat, his tactical officer reported something extraordinary. Admiral, they're helping us. They're creating quantum tunnels to extract our ships safely. Of course they are, Cthor muttered. They're not conquerors. They're gardeners, pruning threats before they can grow. The remaining Craxian ships limped back toward Coalition space, carrying with them a tale that would reshape galactic politics forever. The humans, meanwhile, quietly deactivated their quantum weapons and returned to their colonies, hoping they wouldn't need to use them again. In the depths of space, reality slowly returned to normal, though some crew members would never quite shake the memory of existing in multiple states simultaneously or experiencing their own deaths in parallel timelines. Back on Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Antarctic ice, Colonel Webb filed his report. The quantum defense grid had performed as expected, but the psychological cost was high. Each activation reminded humanity of what they were capable of the thin line between defender and destroyer. As he finished his report, Webb added a personal note. Recommend continued diplomatic efforts. The galaxy must never know the full extent of our capabilities. We remain most human when we choose restraint over power. The Craxian Empire would survive this encounter, but they would never again view humanity as primitive or weak. They had learned what the ancient Yathi and Morthan had discovered too late. Human politeness wasn't weakness, it was mercy. The lesson learned. News of the Craxian fleet's defeat spread through the Galactic Coalition like a supernova's shockwave. Species that had dismissed humanity's warnings now scrambled to re-examine every interaction, every treaty, every seemingly innocent human request. In the Grand Chamber of the Coalition, an emergency session convened. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again before the assembly. But this time, the atmosphere was markedly different. Where once there had been condescension, now there was fear, and in some cases, awe. High Chancellor Velmar of the Ethereal Consortium, a being of pure energy, pulsed with agitation. Ambassador Chen, the reports from the Epsilon sector, are they accurate? Did humanity truly manipulate quantum fields on a macroscopic scale? Sarah's expression remained diplomatically neutral. Chancellor, humanity has always advocated for peaceful coexistence. Our defensive capabilities are just that, defensive. We have no desire for conquest or domination. But you possess weapons that could unmake reality itself, protested the Silicate ambassador. its crystalline form resonating with anxiety. "We possess many things," Sarah replied carefully. "Knowledge of nuclear fission can power cities or destroy them. Understanding of genetics can cure diseases or create plagues. The tool matters less than the intent behind its use." Admiral Cathor, attending via hologram from his recovering flagship, spoke up. "I have faced the might of dozen empires, survived battles that scorched entire systems, but nothing prepared me for what humanity unleashed. They didn't just defeat us, they showed us mercy. They could have erased the Craxian Empire from existence, yet they chose to let us withdraw." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For centuries, galactic politics had been based on visible military might, economic power, and territorial control. Humanity had just demonstrated that true power lay in restraint. "We propose a new protocol," Sarah announced. "A universal agreement that diplomatic solutions must be exhausted before any military action. We call it the Please Doctrine." "Named after your warnings?" Velmar inquired. "Named after the principle that courtesy costs nothing but can save everything," Sarah clarified. "When we say please, we're not just being polite, we're offering an alternative to destruction." The Manted Queen, speaking through her translator drone, chittered thoughtfully. "You humans evolved on a death world, yet you choose diplomacy over dominance. This is unexpected." "Not really," Sarah smiled. "Precisely because we evolved in such a hostile environment, we understand the value of cooperation. Every human child learns that working together accomplishes more than fighting alone. We applied that principle to quantum mechanics, to space travel, to galactic relations. Over the following months, the Please Doctrine was ratified by every major power in the coalition. Military confrontations dropped by 90% as species took human diplomatic warnings seriously. The phrase, "Please don't make us mad," became a galactic meme, a reminder that true strength lay in the choice not to use it. In human space, life continued much as before. Colonies expanded peacefully, trade flourished, and research stations probed the mysteries of the universe. But now, when human diplomats spoke, the galaxy listened. The Craxian Empire, humbled but not broken, became one of humanity's strongest allies. Admiral Cathor, promoted to Supreme Commander despite his defeat, often spoke at military academies about the day he learned that the most dangerous warriors were those who preferred peace. "Humans are terrifying," he would tell his cadets, "not because of their weapons, but because they choose not to use them. They've mastered forces that could reshape reality, yet they'd rather share a meal and tell stories." When a human says, "Please, listen," it's not a request, it's an opportunity to avoid discovering why they're asking nicely. Years later, when the extragalactic devourers arrived, beings that consumed entire star systems, it was humanity that coordinated the defense, not with quantum weapons or reality warping technology, but with diplomacy backed by the credible threat of overwhelming force. The devourers, sensing something different about these small bictal creatures, agreed to negotiations. When human ambassadors explained, very politely, that continued aggression would make humanity mad, the devourers somehow understood. They withdrew to their home dimension, marking the first time in recorded history that an extragalactic threat had been resolved without firing a shot. In the aftermath, the coalition asked humanity to share their quantum technology. The human response was characteristic. "We'll gladly share our medical advances, our agricultural techniques, our artistic traditions. But some knowledge is too dangerous to spread. Trust us, you don't want these weapons. We don't want these weapons. We have them because we must, not because we want to." Ambassador Chen, now elderly but still sharp, gave a final address to the coalition before retirement. "Our species has a saying, 'Speak softly and carry a big stick.' But we've learned that it's even better to speak kindly and help others carry their burdens. The universe is vast and full of wonders. Let's explore it together as friends." The galaxy had learned its lesson. When humans said, "Please," it wasn't just courtesy. It was civilization's safety valve, the thin line between peace and a power that could unmake reality itself. And so, across countless worlds, in countless languages, the word spread. If humans ask nicely, say yes. If they warn you, listen. And if they ever stop saying please, pray you're not the reason why. For in the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their mastery over quantum forces or their ability to bend reality. It was their choice to remain human, to value mercy over might, to say please when they could demand, and to extend a hand in friendship when they could easily make a fist. The universe was better for it.